Hello and welcome to the AIM webinar series. My name is Mike Allen and I serve AIM Inc. as their Member Engagement Manager. AIM, the Association for Automatic Identification and Mobility, is the premier source of industry support for the automatic identification market. For more than 40 years, companies have joined AIM Inc. to lead the growth of our industry. AIM serves as a hub for quality resources covering all types of barcode, RFID, and mobile computing information. We also serve as an incubator for new auto ID innovations that grow the market. AIM delivers trusted resources that connect you to new customers and business partners. I would like to direct your attention to your monitor to review a few housekeeping items before we begin our presentation. Throughout the presentation, our speaker for today's webinar, David Kane, will be engaging you in some poll questions. The poll questions will pop up on your screen when David launches them, and we ask that you quickly respond to the inquiries. Once polling is finished, you can simply X out of the question once poll results are closed. After the presentation, we'll be sending you a brief survey through SurveyMonkey, which we would like all of you to complete. This is a great tool for us to help make these webinars as worthwhile as possible. At the end of the presentation, David will be answering some of your questions. If you have a question you would like to ask, click the chat icon on the top right of your screen. After this, you'll see a chat dialog box at the bottom right of your screen. Make sure in the Send To box you select David Kane's name, and then in the box below, type your question to him. AIM would like to thank TEXLYNX for their support of today's event. As previously stated, our speaker for today's webinar is David Kane, Label Design Product Manager for TEXLYNX. David Kane will be conducting this presentation in our AIM webinar series, Do More with Less, Amplify Lean Manufacturing with Labeling Software. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming David Kane.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the quick introduction there. And I guess we can go ahead and get started with the webinar right away. And before we really get into, the actual content of the webinar today, just want to go over a quick agenda of what we hope to cover. To begin with, do some quick introductions, not only who I am, but also a little bit about TEXLYNX as a company. Then we'll get into the actual content for today, and that is focusing on, lean manufacturing. And of course, to start with that, we'll go over a general overview of exactly what lean manufacturing is and what we mean by the term lean manufacturing. Then get into a little bit about the goals of lean manufacturing and, of course, how we can reach those goals specifically through the use of labeling software and maybe some other higher-level tools. After that, we'll cover some conclusions from what we've discussed, and then, of course, if there are any questions, as Mike had mentioned, I'll be happy to try and answer as many of those as I can at that point. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into those quick introductions. Again, my name is David Kane. I am the Label Design Product Manager here at TEXLYNX. I have a little over 8 years of AIDC experience, almost 9 years now, most of which has been spent right here at TEXLYNX. Happy doing what I am here. I love working with barcoding and labeling. In that time, I've been able to garner a number of different certifications and educational experiences, and one of those is, of course, GS1 Certified Barcode Professional. Basically means I got to learn a whole lot more about barcoding than I ever thought I would. So again, that's a picture of me right there. So if you're curious as to exactly who's speaking today, I may have met a couple of you here and there, because I know we have a number of AIM partners on the line. But if not, that's my shining, smiling face there, and just give you an idea who's presenting today. Otherwise, just a real quick overview of TEXLYNX, a quick TEXLYNX at a glance. TEXLYNX is an industry leader in label design software, and we really do aim to provide labeling software at all different levels of labeling complexity. So that means if you're a basic level mom and pop organization, maybe a small baker or something like that, all the way up to your enterprise level organizations, we've got a label design software designed and tailored specifically to address that level of labeling complexity. We are distributed in over 120 countries through over 1,500 resellers, and we have over 630,000 end users worldwide. And we really do work to serve organizations across all different industries, and we got just a couple different examples of some of our loyal customers here, and you can see there's a broad range from clothing manufacturers to hardware vendors, automation tools, controls, even pharmaceuticals. So really do work to be able to provide labeling solutions across all different industries. So great, so that's just a quick introduction. Don't want to talk too much about who we are. We want to go ahead and get into the meat of today's webinar, and that is, of course, talking about lean manufacturing. And of course, like we said, we want to do a quick overview of exactly what we mean by lean manufacturing. And really what we mean by that is driving towards one core concept, and that's essentially to do more with less. A really basic concept, but sometimes a little bit more, a bit more to it than it might seem. And what we mean by do more with less is essentially striving to reduce or completely eliminate waste. And when we say waste, what we're really talking about is basically consuming any resource for a reason other than one that's adding value to either the company itself or to your customers. So if you're consuming a product that's not offering value in some way, that's wasteful. Now, even though it's a simple concept, tackling the concept or the idea of making a more lean manufacturing environment can often seem like a fairly daunting task, and that's really mainly because the concepts and the principles of lean manufacturing really tend to spread out and impact all different portions or all different aspects of an organization. So this means that there really are a broad number of applications all across your organization that could impact manufacturing and making the process as lean as possible. So one of the biggest difficulties is determining a good starting point and choosing which application or which part of your organization is the best area to start and work towards encouraging that more lean manufacturing process. It's really common for companies to start looking at making improvements in, say, their product development or manufacturing areas, because that's the most intuitive place to start. I mean, you're talking about making your manufacturing process a little bit more lean, so why doesn't it make sense to focus mainly on manufacturing? But what people quickly start to find is that the benefits that are achieved by making your manufacturing process a bit more lean, you start to see the benefits impacting other processes all over your organization. And we're not just talking about processes that involve, say, the physical product that you're making or the actual labor involved, but can also impact some of the interpersonal areas, the interpersonal procedures in your company, like things like your customer service and technical support departments. And we'll get into a little bit about how that happens a little bit later. But the key point is here, because lean manufacturing and the benefits and the impact of the manufacturing process has such a large impact across the entire organization, it's important to not focus your attention on one specific region or one specific area in the company. So let's talk about some of the goals of manufacturing. And really, when we're talking about goals of manufacturing, we're often talking about goals that might also directly support some other overall business goals. And I'll list through a couple of the goals here, but you might start to notice that the goals that we talk about here are also commonly goals that are just found across your organization. So it's easy to see how making improvements in your manufacturing process would directly support and see visible and tangible benefits across all other areas of your business. So like to start off with, just generally creating efficiency in daily operations. Obviously, that's a major goal of manufacturing, and also commonly a goal that's found across all areas of an organization, just making things a bit more efficient. Reduce cost of manufacturing. The cost of manufacturing is a huge part of your business. So any small change that you can make, any minor reduction in cost, because it's going to be such a large part of a business that is focusing on manufacturing, it's going to have a fairly substantial impact. So a very important goal of manufacturing, but also in lean manufacturing, but also a goal that would make sense in impacting the rest of the organization. Being able to easily adapt to changes in demand. The fluctuations happen. Sometimes there's a lot of demand coming in for a specific product, and then there's light times where you might need to taper off. And being able to adapt to those fluctuations and changes in what is needed in manufacturing is a major part of improving, or one of the main goals in becoming a more lean manufacturing space. Improve the flow of operations and teamwork. Again, this is one of those areas that, yes, it makes sense that, that's a goal. You want to have better communication and better teamwork in the manufacturing process, but again, a very common goal that's found across organizations in many different areas. And this is a major area that, when improved on in manufacturing, will very commonly have a direct impact on those other areas of the company. So this is a significant area for improvement. Limit overproduction. Overproduction can be a huge resource waste. If you're overproducing items, you're obviously wasting time and space because you need to manufacture the product, store the product somewhere because it's not being sold, and then, of course, the most important thing, you're wasting a lot of labor in generating this product that doesn't necessarily need to be produced at this point. So limiting that overproduction of goods. And then, of course, that kind of overarching goal of just saying that, hey, we want to work to minimize any kind of waste. If there is any area in the manufacturing process that is using some sort of resource that's not providing some benefit, we want to work to eliminate that. So great. Well, those are, again, just a few of the goals of lean manufacturing. And again, like I said, you can very clearly see how the concepts and the goals in the manufacturing area are often very similar to the goals that you might see in other areas of your business. So the improvements in lean manufacturing are going to directly support improvements across your entire organization. Now, I do want to go ahead and take one quick moment of your time and do a brief polling question. And I just need to go ahead and pull it up here, so if you can bear with me just a moment. Oops. Apologize. I just need to get the section to come up here. I apologize for the delay. There we go. Okay. Where is the window? It's not popping up for me. There we go. I apologize. Okay. So, polling question in this case. Which of these lean manufacturing goals would your business benefit from most? Now, this is, of course, a polling question that is posed for end users, but I know we do have a number of partners on the line. So for those of you that are AIM partners, try and view this question from the perspective of do your end user, do your customers, do you envision them encountering this specific scenario across any of the polling questions that we go. So do you see lean manufacturing goals would be beneficial to your customers or your end users? So let me go ahead and open the poll here. And if you can, just go ahead and choose one of those different options. And you got the many different options that we just discussed, many different goals that are often pursued. So I'll give just a few minutes here for anybody on the line to go ahead and submit your results. All right. We've got about half the results here, so give it a few more minutes. Again, a number of different benefits here, and I appreciate those of you that are AIM partners, contributing your thoughts for your end users and your experiences in that area. Okay. We got a few more still outstanding there, so if you haven't submitted an answer, I'd appreciate you going ahead and just throwing that answer in real quick. All right. Looks like it's slowing down. Don't have everybody here, but what I will do is go ahead and close this poll out so that we can continue on and I can show everyone the results here. All right, so hopefully you can see the results on your screen right now. Looks like a fairly big grouping in the area of basically just creating efficiency in daily operations. And that makes sense because that really is a common goal across many different areas of a business. So it makes sense that would also be the general topic that would be focused on for the manufacturing process as well. So again, I appreciate everyone that submitted your feedback there. We're going to have just a couple more coming up here, and I appreciate you, taking the time and submitting answers for those as they come through as well. Hopefully it'll go a little smoother next time because I got those to come up, and I'll have that up for the next section. All right, if you do still have the polling questions results up and you want that closed, like Mike said, you can. Feel free to just hit the X and close that window out so you can see the presentation again. All right, so now we talked about the goals, and thank you for submitting your feedback on that polling question. Let's talk a little bit about how we can actually work towards achieving some of those goals, sort of the more important topic at hand. Now, taking a step back and looking at all of those goals, it might seem kind of overwhelming to try to address all of those different goals at once. But one of the things that's important to kind of keep in mind is that oftentimes a very small, it could be a very minor and single change can have a significant result. It doesn't have to be an overarching major modification to your business process to see results. It could be a very small change, and we'll talk about what some of those small things could be in just a second. And those small changes can in themselves have a very significant impact on the efficiency of your manufacturing process. So for many companies, a great area to start with, and that small change is just utilizing an effective labeling software. You know, they may already have it. Most companies already do have an effective labeling software in place, but taking that resource that's available to you and making sure that you're using it to the fullest extent. Oftentimes, a lot of companies will implement a labeling software to address a single need, a single problem that's occurring. And once they obtain that software and address that single need, they just move on with business as usual and don't look at everything else that's available in that resource. And using a software like that for a single purpose, a single implementation, is an extremely limiting thing to do. There's many different options that are available within a software package like that that could be providing benefits, and if you're focusing it only on one specific problem, you really are leaving a lot of useful potential on the table. Well, what do we mean by this? Well, labeling software in itself is really perfectly suited for a whole range of different areas. Areas like the shipping tools, production, logistics, warehousing. A lot of companies will have purchased the software, and implemented it in one specific area. Maybe they're using it for their logistics, but they're not actually looking at it for their warehousing or production or shipping. That's the idea behind how limiting it can be to focus on just one area of your business for that labeling solution. And a lot of times there are actually even higher level features in a labeling software that can have a very significant impact outside of just the label design component. So looking at not only how this software can be used in different areas of your company, but looking at all of the resources available within the application are two very valuable resources that can have a significant impact on improving your manufacturing process. What do we mean by that? Well, what are some examples of this? Well, to start off with, one of those ways that we talk about using the software a little bit more is by developing what we like to refer to as innovative label templates. And when you say innovative, that's kind of a general term. So just a few examples of what we mean by those innovative templates is to say incorporate something like color coding. Color and labeling is becoming much more prevalent, much more common as of late, and mainly because of the significant benefits it can offer. It can really help to improve inventory identification. If you're looking for, say, a pair of green running shoes, if you're dealing with only thermal labels with just black and white text, finding the word green on a shelf of hundreds of pairs of shoes is quite difficult. Whereas if you have a green label with a green pair of tennis shoes on that label, really pops out, and you can see right away that that's what you need. So a significant improvement in inventory identification, directly supports traceability, and of course improves safety and really draws attention to any problems that might be or hazards that might be present. A great example of this is GHS labeling, chemical labeling. That's been a regulation passed down by the U.S. government, basically stating that any chemicals that need a label attached to them are going to have color pictograms placed on those. And that's because those color pictograms really do pop and draw the attention to anyone viewing that label and drawing that attention to the danger or the hazard that may be present with that chemical. So color coding, a great tool and resource available with a labeling software. Again, how about strategic placement of the labels? Making sure that when you're placing labels, you're doing it in a way that might, say, make it possible for you to have automated scanning systems put into place. Obviously, having an automated scanning system in place is going to significantly help with time savings and efficiency in a production and manufacturing environment. Having flexible templates, flexible designs for if changes occur, meaning that you need to make you have new requirements that come down. Let's say that the templates need to be modified and have new components added to it, or a new regulation comes through and you have to modify your labels. Making labels so that they're very flexible means that instead of having thousands of separate labels, you have a handful of templates, so that when a modification is necessary, you only have a handful of labels that need to be modified rather than the whole massive gambit of thousands of designs. And then, of course, finally, RFID labels. This is an area that's becoming more and more popular in recent years. RFID, of course, had tons and tons of benefits involved with traceability and that non-linear, no need for line of sight for identification. Tons of benefits in RFID as well. So a number of different benefits just from taking a label and making it do more than maybe just look good. Obviously, an attractive label is an important thing, but making a design that not only looks good but also works a little for you and makes your life a little bit easier is really going to do a lot in the manufacturing efficiencies. Some of the great benefits of having I guess a more consistent setup, in this case, say like a consistent labeling environment, means that you're going to have much more reliable information. And having reliable information means that you're going to have less of an impact to accuracy and inconsistency in the process flow. So having a reliable source of information means that it's easier for information to be understood, easier for, or more reliable for what's going on in the packages and what's going on in the products going out the door. Means that people are going to receive what they intended, less complaints, less returns. This is where we're saying that having improvements in your manufacturing process can directly impact, say, like your customer service department. If you're sending out products that are more consistently identified and less inaccuracies in what's going out the door, you're going to have less complaints and less calls to your customer service department about how they received the wrong product. TEXLYNX recently did a case study with one of our wonderful end users, and in their environment, because of the changes they did just in their label designs, they saw a significant improvement in their IT overhead. One of the reasons that their IT overhead went down so much was because there was less time spent training all of these employees on how to understand and how to work in the production environment, in the manufacturing environment. In this particular case, it was a 50% reduction in how much time they were spending on new employee training, and obviously that's no small number. 50% reduction in how much you're spending on training of new employees is a clear indication that it's much easier to work with, much easier to understand, and obviously you're going to spend significantly less money on that training process. Oh, great. Well, that's one of the ways that we can work with labeling software. Another way that we speak towards keeping things efficient is actually with compliance. So this is kind of a weird area for us to bring up with how to be more efficient or be more lean, but compliance is actually a big part of making sure things go smoothly. Obviously, complying with all of these government regulations, maybe customer regulations, be it whoever's retailing or selling your product, they may have requirements. And complying with all of those requirements or regulations is very costly, can be very time-consuming, and if you don't comply, if you do something wrong, the repercussions can be extremely problematic, very disruptive to the production process. if, say, for instance, you find out that, oh, all of your labels need to be updated and they all need GHS pictograms on them now. If you don't have easy access to templates with GHS pictograms and templates that are formatted meeting that standard, it means that it could bring down your production environment for an undetermined amount of time until you can get up and running and meet that compliance requirement. One of the best options available to you is oftentimes labeling software companies will include standard label templates that they went through and created and made sure that they meet the stringent government regulations or maybe even common customer requirements. They have gone through, they made sure that these label designs meet those needs, and you get to benefit from their hard work. You need to have a GHS a pictogram label, a GHS certified label or compliant label, grabbing their sample template and just populating your information into it. Hey, you know your sample, you know your label is already good to go. All you're doing is populate your information. Definitely gives you a leg up on that compliance and gets you back up and running that much faster. Just some great examples of this. GS1, not a regulation there, they are a standard, but a lot of companies depend on that standard. So those companies are very adamant about the fact that you need to have a properly formatted GS1 label. GHS, like I said, those globally harmonized system of classification chemical labels, having those are government regulations, as well as UDI, unique device identification for medical devices, or the 21 CFR Part 11 pharmaceutical regulations. All of those very stringent, very important and strict regulations for what needs to be done, and having sample labels at your disposal that you can just grab and tap into is going to go very far in getting you up and compliant as quickly as possible. And then, of course, the last one there is the PTI, Pro Tools Traceability Initiative. Again, not a regulation, but an initiative, and again, many customers, many retailers demanding that those initiatives be met. All right. One more polling question here, and let's see if I can't just do this a little bit quicker this time. All right. And I can. Great. So polling question is government compliance a concern in your labeling process? Again, for those of you that are partners on the line, do you see that your customers are encountering government regulations? Are they complaining that, oh man, I have this new regulation that I need to adhere to, this is frustrating, how do I make sure that I have a label that's going to meet these requirements, and I can't produce anything until I get a label that has those requirements on it? Are you encountering that? Or is that not so much of a problem that you've heard about? So, all right, got better response rate here already, so we give it just another 5 or 10 seconds. Looks like there's only 3 or 4 people left that haven't answered, so. All right. I won't waste any more of his time, so go ahead and close that and share it with everyone here. And an overwhelmingly large percentage saying yes, so it is definitely an issue that's coming up here and there for a lot of customers, a lot of people encountering, hey, you know what, that government regulation is annoying, but hey, nonetheless, I have to adhere to it. So again, having sample labels at their disposal that are already verified to meet those requirements means that they can just throw their information in and move on with business. So great. All right, I'll go ahead and close that back out again. And again, if you want to close it out on your end, just hit that X. You should be taken back and be able to see that presentation again. All right, just a couple more, 1 or 2 more examples of how we can use label design software to create a little bit more efficiency. Bear with me a second here. Apparently, I've got a ambulance going by right by me here, so I don't know if you can hear that, but I apologize for that. All right, so okay, just a few more examples of this. One great example being the implementation of database integration. And when we say database integration, we're saying that, hey, you want to be able to pull information directly from some other business system. Many business systems have a back-end database that contains all of the relevant information for your labeling or your customer's labeling. Being able to tap into that and just extract that out and use that really does work towards eliminating manual processes. And those manual processes, besides being very time-consuming, having to open a label and manually type in each field and potentially make a mistake and shift a field on a label or fat figure the entry and accidentally type the wrong information. You get many errors, a lot of wasted time. So pulling information from a database, it eliminates that manual process and presents users with just the relevant information to choose essentially from a list. When we say that you want to pull it from a business system, that could mean one of dozens of different things. Common ones are things like Oracle and SAP, but there's dozens and even hundreds of different kinds of out-of-the-box or homegrown business systems. Almost all of them, however, have some sort of back-end database that store all the information, and you or your customer could very easily tap into that database of information and extract that information out and make the process that much easier for the person actually producing the product. Great part of database integration is the ability to basically say that, hey, I want to enter in a part number or a work order number or some other specific piece of information and have that automatically find the relevant information in the database and use that on the label. You can see on the right-hand side sort of that scrolling label. It's the example of what it's like if you have dozens of separate label designs. You have to maintain all of those different labels, and the person who's actually doing the labeling is going to have to actually, again, apologize. Apparently there's a lot of emergency vehicles going by right now, so I apologize for the background noise. So anyway, where I was saying there, having all of those templates basically means there's a lot more to maintain. There's a lot more for the users to have to sort through and find the appropriate label design. And if something changes, if there's an update that needs to be to the label, you got to go through and update all of those separate templates. Instead, pulling from databases allows you to have one single template that then populates that template with the variable information, the changing information pulled right from that database. It's going to help save some time, eliminate that manual process, and greatly increase the amount of accuracy in the label production. And tapping into a database is often a very simple thing to do. This is a great example of a very small change. Something that could be a very minor change in the process that's being done can have a very significant impact in how efficient and how accurate they're being. Again, recent case study by TEXLYNX saw 50% reduction in the amount of errors that were occurring just by switching to a database. Of course, there's still going to be some interaction there. They do have to pick a record from the database, but a 50% reduction in errors, that's pretty significant. And of course, because that meant errors in their production meant that there's going to be an angry customer on the other end of it, that 50% reduction in errors meant an equal reduction in the number of costly customer returns they were processing. So great example, database integration, a relatively minor thing for them to change or modify in their process and can cause a significant improvement. One of our final options here is sort of a little larger of an implementation here, but sometimes very, very relevant, is the implementation of some sort of print automation. This is essentially completely removing the human element from this scenario. Obviously doing that, getting rid of the human element, means that you're getting rid of that time-consuming and very error-prone process. And the way we're doing this is we're saying, hey, we're not going to be manually selecting or entering or doing anything in the label template. You're not even going to be going into the labeling software anymore. They're going to work directly out of whatever business system, whatever application they want to work in or they're commonly working in. A great example of this is automatically configuring it to trigger the printing process based off of some specific action in a business system, an ERP system, a WMS system. This is those SAPs and Oracles of the world, and any other internal or custom-built ERP system. The print automation software might seem like it would be a significant undertaking to be able to connect that to whatever system you have in place, but actually you might be surprised to find out that the software that exists is intentionally designed to make it as easy as possible to tap into and utilize that information and take the user out of the designer, no more access to even potentially or even maliciously modify a label. They don't even have access to it anymore. The only thing they can do is work in their business system, and everything happens right from that business system. So just a nice little diagram here. Obviously, print automation is going to do a lot to reduce the number of errors that are being encountered because there is no more manual process involved. There's no users even having access to the label templates. Because of the way the process works, there's going to be significantly less label templates involved. This is going to make things much more important. Much more efficient. No need to work towards developing or work towards maintaining all of those label designs. And of course, because you're taking advantage of that less time spent on that development, you're saving lots of time and of course saving lots of money. Print automation is definitely the most significant improvement. You can see the most significant improvements, but it is a little bit more of a major change in the environment and the manufacturing environment itself. Again, we have had a recent print automation case study, again with another TEXLYNX end user that was seeing the benefits of implementing a print automation solution, saw some pretty, or was looking to, I should say, reduce some very costly manual processes, and they really thought it was very important to all but completely eliminate all of the manual entry errors, and that's what they did. Actually, they were able to completely eliminate all errors. They got 100% reduction in the number of errors because there was no manual entry that existed anymore. So there was absolutely no errors occurring from that manual entry process anymore. They also saw a 75% reduction in label development time. This is because the process involved with creating the print automation meant reducing the number of templates that were involved, and of course that means that there's a significant amount of time that is no longer needed to be spent on that development and maintenance. And of course, because of that reduction, they saw an equal reduction in labor costs, 100% reduction in manual entry errors, and a 75% reduction in labor costs. Pretty significant numbers. So you can see how print automation is definitely one of those options that can really cause some major impacts and really go a long way towards making a much more lean manufacturing environment. Last but not least, I promise you this is the last polling question I'm going to throw at you here. There we go. No, and I'll open this poll up. Can your business benefit from labeling automation? I know we have a lot of partners on the line, and this is actually one of those those questions that potentially this could be a question for not only your customers but also for you as a company. A lot of companies, even partners of TEXLYNX, could realistically see benefits from print automation in their businesses. So again, give it just a few minutes here to go ahead and enter in some responses here. Again, got the majority of responses coming through, just a couple left over hanging out there. All right, it doesn't look like any more are coming in here, so I'm going to go ahead and give it one last chance. Nope, nobody. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out that poll, and again, I'll share it for everyone to see. So, 100%. They're saying yes. So again, it's pretty easy to see that print automation can have a pretty significant impact on the manufacturing process. Some very clear benefits, and obviously from that one example, that one case study, people that customer is seeing 100% reduction in their errors and a 75% reduction in their labor costs. That's some pretty significant numbers pulling down. So. Great. Again, thank you very much for everyone taking time to give me the feedback on those polling questions. That was the last one, so great. Again, if you need to, go ahead and hit that X, close that window out, and we'll keep going. So a few more slides here. We'll talk about a lot of the benefits and goals and how we can even achieve those goals, but let's do a quick, I guess, recap, draw some conclusions to have a few key takeaways here. First of all, the overarching topic here was identifying that labeling itself can have a very significant impact not only on a manufacturing process, but also on the business as a whole, because we see that impacts to lean manufacturing can have an impact on the business as a whole. So labeling can be a great starting point and have a significant impact. A great idea to take a step back and reevaluate the processes that you're following today. Identify if there's any opportunity for improvement. Look at those processes that you have. Maybe step back and say, hey, is there a way that the software that we potentially already have can help us improve efficiency in that area? So reevaluate those processes. Keep in mind, minor change could be a major impact. Excuse me. It doesn't have to be a huge overarching change to your software. It could be, to your business. It could be a very small modification, and that modification could have a very significant impact. Last but not least, if you do need help, if you have any questions, maybe you're not really sure which area is the best area for you to work towards, what area in your business might be a good area to adopt the addition of your labeling software. If you have questions, feel free to contact us. TEXLYNX is a company, other AIM members, a lot of people will have feedback and options, be able to provide some insight in how you can use a labeling software to make a much more lean manufacturing process. So great. All right, and I think I'm going to hand that back to you then, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, David, for that great presentation. It looks like you received a few questions for our AIM webinar Q&A session. David, would you like to go over some of those now?
Sure, let me see here. All right, there is one question that says, have there been any recent manual entry studies similar to the studies in the 70s and 80s? We have done, and he had a follow-up question saying, studies related to the cost of an error. We have done some research into seeing how people have seen reductions in the number of errors that they're encountering, but how much it's actually costing them is really going to depend from one company to the next. Obviously, an error in a pharmaceutical company versus an error tagging a box of bread is going to have two completely different levels of impact. You know, labeling a pharmaceutical product improperly can have not only some pretty significant legal ramifications, but it could be hazardous to health. So there's a range of how much these errors are costing. And again, I'm not sure offhand if there's been one done recently to see how much it's costing, like the U.S. in general, but that it's definitely something I think I'd probably want to look into a little bit further. That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer specifically. All right. I do have just a couple other questions here. One says, okay, I'm still not sure which area I should start in. That's a good question. If you know, there's a lot of areas that we discussed today, and even in the labeling software section alone, there's a lot of facets to it. You might not know which area of your business is a great application for it, and that's okay. TEXLYNX actually does offer free assessments where we'll go through and talk about your business process, talk about the production and manufacturing process that you follow today, and help you identify if there's areas that the labeling software might be able to aid and assist in making things a bit more efficient. We do a look at all different aspects of a business, not even just the labeling software. So if that is something that you're interested in, we'd be happy to go ahead and set you up and have that discussion to try and give you a little guidance in that area. And again, there are a number of other AIM partners, many of which are on the line here today, that also would be probably happy to dive into and discuss that with you as well. Another question here is, would it be possible to get custom label templates created for our company? Definitely. If you do need the custom templates created from a TEXLYNX standpoint, if you're looking for a TEXLYNX label design, we do offer label design services where we'd be happy to go through and understand what the labeling need is, what the label design need is, and of course we'll go ahead and generate that for you with your approval. And same thing said, I'm sure, for a number of different AIM partners involved, where services are always happily available to perform those custom label design services. Another question was, I like the idea of database integration, but we have a ton of labels. Where do we start with that? Well, again, a lot of database integration scenarios are scenarios where customers have actually ended up with hundreds or thousands of labels because they've kind of onesie-twosied the labels as they were needed. They opened up a label and they just modified the one or two fields that need to be modified, and then they saved the label again as a new template. They do that over and over and over again for every single one of their products, and ta-da, you have thousands of labels. The other option is, you know, taking a step back and saying, hey, let's have somebody go through and review all of those label designs and find out what the variable information is and create our own database. Unfortunately, that's kind of a manual process, and it is a process that TEXLYNX does help and work towards doing, that sort of database generation if there's a need for it. But commonly in a business, if it's information that you need on your labels, chances are somewhere else in your business it's already in play. There's already a database somewhere in some system on a back end or something like that that has all of that information stored in it. It's just a matter of tapping into that. So that could be the other process, and something that even we would be able to assist in helping you identify maybe areas that you might be able to extract that information, or even, like we were saying before, tap into and utilize maybe perhaps print automation. So great things, all things. If there's ever a question, we're happy to discuss a little bit further. A couple of these questions are definitely something that you know, if there is interest, please feel free to contact us at TEXLYNX or any of our AIM partners, and we'd be happy to discuss those areas further. But actually, that looks like all the questions I have, Mike.
Okay, great. Yep, that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you to all of the participants who submitted questions. Thank you, David, for your insight and knowledge into amplifying lean manufacturing with labeling software and for providing us with this presentation today. Thank you to our audience for their active participation. I hope that you all found this information to be valuable. We would appreciate your feedback. Please take the time to complete a brief session evaluation, which will be sent out to you shortly. This information will be used to develop the future presentations in our AIM webinar series, Future AIM Inc. events. Thank you so much and have a great day.